The silence is shattered by a sudden, ear-piercing scream, as our boy Yaisok gets absolutely chewed out by his toxic manager, who is clearly having a massive power trip over a simple scheduling error. Yaisok is just taking the heat, sweating bullets while apologizing, but deep down he is clearly questioning his entire existence in this soul-crushing office. Then a coworker slides in with that smug, condescending grin, basically calling Yaisok a total loser who lacks any real-world grit or street smarts. Yaisok just forces a fake, hollow laugh to keep the peace, hiding his true frustration behind a mask of corporate compliance. He stares into the void, realizing his life feels like a total prologue that refuses to actually start. Collapsing onto his bed, he is completely drained, just another night of rotting away in his tiny, lonely apartment. Searching for the remote like a zombie, he is just trying to numb his brain after another brutal day of being a corporate punching bag. Finally zoning out in front of the screen, he reflects on how he is just drifting through life without a single win to his name. But then the TV flickers to life, showing a version of himself that actually crushed it, looking like a total champion in the spotlight. Yaisok is staring at the screen, completely floored by the realization that he shares his name with a total legend. He starts reminiscing about his own childhood, back when he was a scrappy 9-year-old kid actually training in Taekwondo. Suddenly he jumps up, feeling a weird surge of energy as he decides to flex those long-forgotten muscles. But his body immediately betrays him, snapping and cracking like a glow stick as he tries to pull off a move. He is literally cursing under his breath, sweating and grimacing while his joints scream in protest at the sudden movement. Collapsing back onto the bed in a heap of pure regret, he realizes he is way too out of shape for this. The TV keeps hyping up the other Yaisok, calling him the absolute pride of the nation while our guy just watches. He is drowning in a sea of jealousy, watching the crowd cheer for a version of himself that actually made it. Flashing back to his younger self, he remembers that golden era when he truly believed the world was his oyster. Finally, he just gives up, closing his eyes to shut out the reality that tomorrow is just another soul-crushing day at the office. Chaos erupts as the villagers scream that their savior has finally arrived, acting like they just won the lottery. Yaisok is just standing there, completely bewildered, looking like he just walked into the wrong office meeting. Suddenly he is transported into a massive, ancient-looking chamber, with light pouring down like he is in some holy cutscene. A bunch of fantasy locals are crowding around him, eyes wide and sparkling with pure, unadulterated desperation. This mage named Diable reaches out with a hand, looking way too excited to be dealing with a confused office worker. Yaisok is literally recoiling, his brain struggling to process why a hooded stranger is trying to recruit him into some hero gig. He lets out a massive, panicked shout, probably wondering if he is having a mental breakdown after that brutal day at work. The camera pans up to show this massive, ominous stone tower, looking like the kind of place where bad things happen. Yaisok is sitting in a fancy chair, looking totally out of place while asking why he was dragged into this mess. Diable is glowing with magical energy, ready to dump a massive lore-heavy explanation on our guy, while we get a flashback of some intense, armored warriors. This absolute unit of a demon lord is just standing there, radiating pure menace while his back muscles look like they were carved out of solid granite. He is literally tearing through the battlefield, his hand glowing with a terrifying purple energy that screams instant death for anyone unlucky enough to be in his path. The guy is an absolute monster, literally crushing a soldier's helmet like it is made of cheap tin foil while the poor dude doesn't stand a chance. Soldiers are flying everywhere, completely outclassed as they try to hold the line against a guy who treats their best combat formations like a minor inconvenience. Check out that third eye on his forehead, glowing with a cold, calculating intensity that suggests he sees right through every pathetic attempt to stop him. He is literally grabbing a soldier by the dome, channeling that same crackling purple energy to finish the job with zero effort or hesitation. Bodies are hitting the floor like sacks of potatoes, leaving a trail of carnage that proves just how badly the kingdom is losing this one-sided war. The king is sitting on his throne, looking like he has aged 10 years in a single night, completely stressed out by his kingdom's total lack of options. He is basically throwing a Hail Mary, desperate to find some legendary warriors from another dimension who might actually stand a fighting chance against that absolute beast. We see a montage of these supposed heroes, all looking like they stepped out of an action flick, but the kingdom's track record says they are probably doomed. Diable is laying it on thick, hyping up Yaisok as the absolute master of Taekwondo, the strongest weapon this fantasy world has ever seen. Yaisok is looking completely shell-shocked, his face pale and sweating as the reality of being called a hero finally hits him like a freight train. A quick flashback shows the exact moment his life went sideways, confirming this whole summoning was just a massive, cosmic case of mistaken identity. He is trying to process the madness, his finger hovering near his face as he desperately tries to find a way out of this. He is basically pleading with Diable, admitting that if he stays here, he is just going to revert to being the same pathetic loser he was back home. The scene cuts back to his miserable office life, where he is hunched over in defeat while his toxic manager looms over him like a vulture. Yaisok is staring into the abyss, his expression hardening as he realizes he is absolutely done with being a corporate punching bag for the rest of his life. He finally snaps, looking up at Diable with a newfound dangerous resolve, deciding he is tired of living a life that feels like a total waste. He stands tall, crossing his arms with a look of pure, unadulterated confidence as he makes the ultimate commitment to save this entire world. Diable is literally beaming with pure, golden-hued joy, her hands clasped in total relief because she finally found someone crazy enough to take on the job. The villagers are absolutely losing their minds, swarming Yaisok like he is a celebrity at a fan meet, screaming their lungs out in pure, unadulterated, desperate gratitude. Yaisok is just standing there, looking like a deer in headlights while some bearded local clings to him, clearly overwhelmed by this sudden, intense, and unwanted hero worship. A local mage is already hyping up a massive party, demanding the booze be brought out to celebrate their savior, while Yaisok just prays this whole mess somehow resolves itself. Later that night, our guy is feeling the burn, his stomach absolutely wrecked by the local ale, so he stumbles outside for some air while everyone cheers him on. He is wandering through the dark woods, sweating and groaning about how this fantasy world's booze is hitting way harder than his usual cheap, post-work office beer. Suddenly, Diable steps out from the shadows, her eyes locked on him with a cold, piercing intensity that makes it clear she is not buying his hero act. Yaisok tries to play it cool, confirming his identity, but he is clearly sweating bullets, wondering if this mysterious woman is just another weird local villager. She doesn't even blink, dropping a bombshell that she finds his whole vibe incredibly suspicious, her expression turning sharp as she stares him down with zero hesitation. Out of nowhere, a terrifying, drooling monster lunges from the darkness, looming over them both while Diable drops the truth that he looks nothing like a real hero. Yaisok is completely losing his cool, his face twisted in pure, unadulterated panic as he stares up at the nightmare beast, realizing his life is about to get way worse. Diable is absolutely roasting our boy, pointing out that even though the villagers are buying his hero act, he looks like a total pushover. She drops the ultimate challenge, basically telling him to put up or shut up by taking down this monster if he is actually the real deal. Yaisok is spiraling, his brain completely short-circuiting as he tries to figure out how he went from a boring office desk to a literal death trap. He is staring up at that one-eyed nightmare, his internal monologue screaming in terror as the reality of a real-life monster finally sinks in. Panic is setting in, and he is questioning the entire logic of his summoning, wondering if the universe just picked him because of his name. He starts to wonder if he has some hidden, god-tier power waiting to be unlocked, his ego trying to cope with the sheer absurdity of his situation. Suddenly he tries to swing, but he is still buzzed from the local booze, making his movements sloppy and completely ineffective against the beast. The monster doesn't even flinch, landing a brutal, lightning-fast strike that tears right through Yaisok's shoulder like it is made of wet paper. Blood is spraying everywhere, and Yaisok is in total shock, his brain struggling to comprehend that he actually just got wrecked in his first real fight. He is left standing there, broken and bleeding out, realizing his grand fantasy adventure is probably ending before it even had a chance to start. Yaisok is reeling, his face a mess of blood and sweat as the adrenaline starts to crash, leaving him questioning if this is actually his end. He flashes back to his younger self in a crisp taekwondo uniform, a kid who actually had fire in his eyes before the corporate grind killed his spirit. Back in the present, he is sprawled out on the ground, his body absolutely wrecked, and his mind struggling to reconcile his pathetic reality with this sudden, violent survival. Suddenly, a surge of raw, unexplainable power erupts from his body, glowing with a chaotic energy that looks like it could tear the very fabric of reality apart. He unleashes a devastating blast of pure force, obliterating the monster in a blinding flash of light that leaves the forest looking like a total war zone. Yaisok is standing amidst the wreckage, his face smeared with blood as he flashes a twisted, arrogant smirk that screams he is finally done playing the victim. He stands tall over the obliterated remains of the beast, his posture radiating a dangerous, newfound confidence that challenges the world to try and stop him. That look in his eyes is cold and sharp, a complete departure from the corporate drone we saw earlier, proving he is ready to embrace this chaotic new life. Diable is standing there with her jaw on the floor, her eyes wide as she realizes this supposed loser just pulled off a move that defies all logic. Yaisok stares at his own hands in total disbelief, trembling as he wonders what kind of terrifying, latent power he just accidentally unlocked in the heat of battle. Diable looms over Yaisok in the golden light, her presence demanding answers after that insane display of raw, unchecked power. She is clearly shaken, realizing that the life of this supposed hero has only just begun in the most violent way possible. She doesn't hold back, straight up calling him dead weight to his face while questioning if he is actually worth the trouble. He is sweating bullets, trying to process her intense interrogation about whether his latent abilities only trigger when he is staring death in the face. Yaisuk is completely baffled, shouting back in confusion because he has no clue how he just turned that monster into absolute paste. She isn't buying his ignorance for a second, holding up her palm and daring him to strike her with everything he has got. He hesitates, clearly terrified of his own strength, but he winds up for a swing anyway while she stands there totally unfazed. The punch lands, but it is pathetic and weak, proving he has zero control over the monstrous force that just saved his life. She looks at him with a mix of pity and cold calculation, mocking his apology as if his massive outburst was just a tiny fly. Finally, she reaches out a hand, commanding him to get up and revealing that the beast he killed was actually her secret weapon against the demon lord. Yaisuk is standing there looking like a total mess, scratching his head and awkwardly apologizing for absolutely obliterating that monster. Diable just stares him down with that intense, unbothered gaze, shutting him down immediately by saying there is zero need for any apologies. She drops the hammer, telling him she has already found a replacement for the beast he just turned into literal forest mulch. The scene shifts to a flashback where Diable introduces herself with a creepy, wide-eyed grin that screams she is hiding some serious baggage. She reveals her twisted magic, admitting her only real trick is perfectly copying the person she is absolutely obsessed with. The tension spikes as she starts to confess who that person is, while we see a mysterious figure walking through a glowing doorway. She looks completely drained and overwhelmed, clutching her head like she is suffering from a massive magical hangover after that reveal. Her eyes are literally burning, forcing her to cover her face as if the sheer intensity of her own magic is blinding her. We cut to the demon lord sitting on his throne, looking so ridiculously radiant that his own minions are literally shielding their eyes. He looks bored out of his mind, telling his sycophant to stop the dramatic, blinding light show every single time they enter the room. Diable is absolutely losing her mind with excitement, practically vibrating as she confesses her deep, borderline unhinged obsession with the demon lord. She explains that he is basically the peak of existence, possessing more raw, terrifying power than any other demon in the entire world. The guy is completely unbound by any rules or limitations, looking like a total powerhouse even when he is just chilling in the grass. She describes him as ruthlessly cruel, a man who doesn't care about the carnage he leaves behind as he walks over his fallen enemies. Her expression turns soft and longing as she admits that the way he treats her is just another part of his mysterious, cold allure. She notes that every single demon in existence worships him, yet she is the one standing outside his window, screaming for his attention. A random, ancient-looking human is outside, screeching at the top of her lungs that she is here to claim the demon lord's head. The demon lord just looks bored, asking Diable if she has been messing with that human village again after he already wiped out their knights. Diable offers to go handle the noisy human intruder, but the demon lord just shrugs it off, telling her to let the poor soul tire herself out. He is clearly used to these pathetic, repetitive attempts on his life, watching from the shadows while the humans scream into the void. Diable is spiraling, terrified that the kingdom might actually launch a full-scale invasion if she doesn't play her cards right. She is clearly desperate, begging for her son to be brought back to life while her true, demonic nature starts to bleed through her human facade. Leaning back with a hand to her face, she admits her only real goal is to protect her master with her own two hands. She explains that her entire infiltration of the human village was a calculated move to keep tabs on their military movements. The poor, unsuspecting villagers have no clue they are being played, as she poses with a local elder to keep up the charade. She recalls how she used her magic to stage a fake monster attack, just to solidify her reputation as a helpful, bleeding heart mage. 2 whole years of acting like a saintly local hero, all to ensure those human bastards never suspected she was actually a spy. Then the royal decree dropped, forcing every village with a resident mage to participate in the hero summoning project. She is sweating bullets now, realizing she is trapped in a corner where she can't just bail without blowing her cover. Trapped by the eyes of the villagers, she realizes she has absolutely no choice but to go through with this hero summoning nightmare. Diable is kneeling in the center of the summoning circle, pouring her magical essence into the floor as the ancient runes begin to glow with a blinding, ethereal light. She is sweating, her eyes locked on the ritual as she realizes that the accuracy of a summoning spell is directly tied to the sheer volume of mana you dump into it. Deciding to play it safe, she intentionally throttles her own output, planning to summon some random, useless nobody just to satisfy the kingdom's annoying, bureaucratic hero summoning requirements. She shouts into the void, demanding that a complete failure appear, but the magic reacts violently, crackling with raw, unpredictable energy that catches her completely off guard. Suddenly, the reality of the situation hits her like a truck, because she realizes she accidentally bypassed the duds and pulled the actual, real-deal hero into this world. She is absolutely losing her mind, teeth gritted in pure frustration as she realizes her plan to sabotage the kingdom just backfired in the most spectacular, chaotic way possible. She is fuming, staring at the ground while she processes the fact that she just handed the humans a massive win despite her best efforts to ruin everything. Her mind is racing as she calculates the timeline, knowing she has exactly 1 month before the heroes gather at the palace and her cover gets blown. The instructor steps into the frame, looking stoic and intense as he promises to forge Yaisok into a weapon, completely unaware that he is being played by a demon. Diable watches from the shadows with a cold, calculated smirk, fully committed to hiding Yaisok's weakness until the perfect moment to slaughter every single hero in one final, bloody move. Yaisok is fully leaning into the lie, deciding he will fake his way to the top and act like the perfect hero. 1 month later, the party finally rolls up to the royal palace, looking like they are ready to save the world. King Ethelinda is sitting on his throne, looking desperate as he welcomes his so-called greatest saviors to the kingdom. The whole hero squad stands together, looking like a ragtag group of misfits that the king is pinning all his hopes on. Yaisok strikes a pose, but internally he is panicking because he knows he is basically a total fraud. He admits to himself that he barely got stronger, feeling like his combat power is still just average. Looking at his party, he wonders why he is stuck in this gi instead of some actual heavy-duty armor. Diable catches him looking stressed and starts digging, asking if he is already plotting to take down the demon lord. She is putting on a sweet act, but deep down she is absolutely seething, ready to slaughter him for his audacity. The truth is the demon lord is a total lunatic who destroys kingdoms just because he is bored out of his mind. Diable is straight-up fangirling over the demon lord, calling him the ultimate role model for every single demon in existence. She reflects on the endless graveyard of mages and knights who were absolutely shredded by his blade, leaving the body count totally uncountable. King Ethelinda is sweating bullets, pointing out that the demon lord has been suspiciously quiet lately, which is honestly just terrifying. Yaisok is looking at the king with a massive side-eye, wondering why a silent enemy is somehow a bad thing for them. The king is losing his mind, calling Yaisok a ticking time bomb and claiming he is definitely plotting something massive behind the scenes. Diable breaks down the only way to win, which involves hunting down 5 top subordinates to snag the keys to the castle. She realizes she is actually holding one of those keys herself, which makes her the exact target the heroes need to hunt. The king is totally groveling on the floor, begging these random heroes to save his kingdom and secure the peace. Yaisok is visibly cringing at the display, awkwardly asking the king to please stand up because this is getting way too weird. A mysterious, scarred figure watches from the shadows with a sinister grin, clearly ready to stir up some serious trouble for our boy. This absolute psycho is already flexing, calling out the team for yapping too much instead of just getting to the demon lord. He is clearly itching for a fight, his eyes wide and manic as he suggests they stop wasting time with all this talk. Yaisok stands there, watching the chaos unfold as this lunatic proposes a literal bloodbath to decide who gets to handle the quest. The guy is completely unhinged, grinning like a shark while asking if the last survivor can just solo the entire mission alone. Tensions are hitting a breaking point as the party members start posturing, ready to tear each other apart for the sake of their egos. Diable is in the background, acting like a terrified nun while internally laughing her head off at the prospect of them killing each other. Yaisok is losing his mind, burying his face in his hands because he realizes these supposed heroes are anything but peaceful. He is staring at the madness, wondering how he ended up in a party where his teammates are more dangerous than the actual monsters. The pressure is mounting, and he is seriously considering just ditching this whole suicide mission before he gets caught in the crossfire. Another party member looks on with pure disbelief, realizing that their team is a total dumpster fire that is destined to implode. The tension is absolutely thick enough to cut with a knife as the warrior calls out the party for their pathetic infighting. He mocks them for getting distracted by a kid's cheap provocation, while the entire kingdom is literally teetering on the edge of total annihilation. His face is twisted into a mask of pure, unfiltered disgust, clearly judging the low-tier caliber of the people he has been forced to work with. Yaisok is staring back, completely stunned by the sudden, aggressive call-out, his brain struggling to process the sheer audacity of this guy's lecture. The warrior turns his back on the group to confront the king directly, demanding to know what the actual reward is for taking down the demon lord. Yaisok is left in the dust, sweating bullets as he realizes he has absolutely no clue what the payout for this suicide mission even is. The king looks visibly rattled, his eyes darting around as he tries to pivot the conversation toward the basic mechanics of magic and mana. He starts rambling about how anyone can wield power if they have the mana, acting like a desperate professor giving a lecture to avoid the real question. Our boy Yaisok is completely lost, wondering what this random magic lesson has to do with the massive, life-threatening stakes they are actually facing. Finally, the king drops the bombshell, revealing that the demon lord holds a boundless supply of mana that could grant godlike power to whoever absorbs it. The text breaks down the demon lord's terrifying arsenal, highlighting his ability to manipulate reality, create life, and undergo monstrous transformations. Yaisok stares blankly, absorbing the fact that the king's promise of unlimited power is basically a golden ticket to becoming a god. Diable internally panics, realizing she completely forgot to mention that the demon lord doesn't even use magic, which is a massive red flag. She reflects on how the demon lord is already peak performance without any spells, so teaching Yaisok magic would be a total waste of time. The mask slips as Diable's frustration boils over, and she seriously considers just ending the entire hero party right then and there. The armored hero ignores her outburst, coldly stating that they are leaving for their mission immediately because there is absolutely no time to waste. Diable lunges at him, demanding to know why he is blowing her off when they still have unfinished business to settle. He shuts her down with a chilling reminder that every second they spend bickering is another moment where innocent people are dying. Yaisok watches the exchange, his mind racing as he recalls the king claiming the demon lord was inactive, which clearly doesn't add up. A cold sweat breaks out on his face as he realizes that if the demon lord isn't the one acting, then who is pulling the strings? The armored hero stands tall, his gaze piercing as he questions who exactly is worth worrying about in this mess. Diable just brushes it off with a dismissive, cold look, clearly not bothered by the hero's sudden display of concern. King Ethelinda sits on his throne, looking absolutely crushed by the weight of his kingdom's survival and the hero's volatile attitudes. The entire party gathers together, looking like a disaster waiting to happen as they prepare to finally confront the demon lord. Yaisok tries to play nice with Diable, but she snaps back with a venomous threat to end him right there. The instructor checks in with the king, confirming the heroes have finally left the palace to begin their dangerous quest. He asks the king for his honest assessment of these summoned warriors, his expression unreadable and stoic as always. The king admits they are a rough, self-centered bunch, but he is forced to rely on them for the kingdom's survival. He kneels in quiet desperation, acknowledging that trusting these unpredictable heroes is the only path left to save his dying world. The instructor stares back with a chilling reminder that the final hour is approaching, and time is rapidly running out for everyone. King Ethelinda stands tall in his royal chambers, his face a mask of grim resignation as he acknowledges the suffocating reality of his situation. The demon messenger stretches his arms overhead with a casual, taunting arrogance, signaling that the kingdom's grace period has officially run out of time. He flashes a predatory grin, clearly enjoying the chance to break the silence and deliver some absolutely soul-crushing news to the royal court. A scroll of ancient, jagged script is unfurled, revealing the binding terms that have shackled the kingdom to the whims of the demon faction. The messenger recites the brutal clauses, reminding the king that any attempt to seek outside help or expose the truth is a direct violation. He looms over the monarch, his hand pressing firmly against the king's chin to force a humiliating display of submission and absolute powerlessness. Eyes glowing with a malevolent, crimson intensity, the demon whispers the singular consequence of breaking their dark pact, which is nothing short of total death. The king stares back, his expression hardening as he realizes his predecessor's desperate attempt to save the people has only created a deeper, inescapable trap. The demon mocks the king's sacrifice with a sarcastic laugh, pretending to wish the demon lord possessed even a fraction of such noble human spirit. Standing in the middle of the throne room, the messenger demands confirmation that the king understands the terms, leaving no room for any further complaints. The demon messenger is absolutely mocking the king, sneering at his desperate, pathetic attempt to summon heroes to save his crumbling kingdom. King Ethelinda looks completely defeated, his face pale as he realizes the summoning was just a minor inconvenience for these demonic overlords. That smug messenger doesn't even hide his disdain, looking down at the king like he is a bug waiting to be crushed. He delivers a final, brutal blow, literally slamming his fist down with enough force to shatter the very air around the throne. The king is left reeling, his mind flashing to Dana as he whispers a final, heartbreaking apology for the impossible burden he forced upon her. He clings to the desperate hope that Yaisok, the man who survived that hellish training, might actually be their last slim chance at salvation. Deep down, he knows the sacrifice of his own bloodline won't be in vain if the hero can just pull off a miracle. Meanwhile, the instructor is still haunting Yaisok's thoughts, his voice echoing like a curse, demanding he finish the job and kill the demon lord. Yaisok is spiraling, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror as he gasps for air, completely overwhelmed by the crushing weight of his destiny. He is literally bolting through the woods, his heart hammering against his ribs as he screams internally, wondering why he is running from his own fate. Diable flashes back to the start of their journey, chirping about the demon lord's first subordinate and where to find their castle. Enzo keeps it strictly professional, acknowledging the intel with a cold nod and pushing the group to pick up the pace. The squad is literally sprinting through the forest, with Enzo rocking his high-tech gear while the others struggle to keep up. Yaisuk is absolutely fuming, watching Enzo zip around on his rocket-powered armor while he is stuck running on his own 2 feet. Sherry looks totally unbothered by the pace, while Lark is clearly enjoying the thrill of the chase with a wild, toothy grin. Lark pulls out a literal magical motorcycle to cruise through the woods, leaving Yaisuk completely baffled by the sheer absurdity of it all. He suggests they break the ice with some introductions, but Lark hits him with the cold truth that they are only bored because they aren't running. Lark Miller steps up, introducing himself with a sharp look and admitting his only goal is to end the war back in his home world. Sherry Feng chimes in next, looking totally spaced out and confessing she hasn't even bothered to think about what she wants from this. Enzo cuts the chatter short, stating his only priority is finishing this mission as fast as possible so he can finally head back home. Yaisuk is absolutely losing his mind, sweating buckets and gasping for water like he just finished a marathon in the middle of a desert. Jachai steps up with that cocky, shark-like grin, basically announcing he is only here to secure the bag and get paid. Poina jumps into the mix with a wild look in her eyes, claiming she is aiming for the demon lord's throne herself. She turns her gaze on Yaisuk, calling him out for his constant whining and pathetic attitude while they are on the move. Dropping the act for a second, she admits she is actually just a desperate girlfriend trying to find medicine for her sick partner. Her expression shifts into something way more sinister, hinting that if she gives them a sob story, they might stop judging her. Enzo isn't having any of it, shutting down the entire conversation with a cold stare and calling their banter absolute useless nonsense. Suddenly, a jagged, red-horned monster crashes the party, and Yaisuk is staring at the nightmare beast like he is seeing his own funeral. Diable is lurking in the background, looking way too excited that the chaos has finally arrived to test their actual combat skills. She is internally cheering for the monster to absolutely wreck the entire hero party, hoping they all get wiped out right now. The squad is on high alert, shouting warnings as a massive threat barrels straight toward them. Enzo and Poina are locked in, staring down the beast with pure cold intensity, calling it a mere monster. Poina doesn't hesitate, launching herself into the fray with a brutal high-impact strike that cuts through the air. Enzo is right there with her, leveling his high-tech gear to unleash a devastating, concentrated blast of pure energy. That beam tears through the landscape, obliterating the target with enough force to turn the entire area into dust. The monster is absolutely vaporized in a massive explosion, leaving the heroes standing tall amidst the smoking, ruined debris. Diable watches the display from the shadows, her expression dark as she mutters that they are just too damn strong. Enzo is still fired up, screaming at the others to stop interfering while he dominates the battlefield with his tech. Poina snaps back with equal fury, demanding he cut the attitude and stop barking orders at her right now. Yaisuk is just standing there, looking totally checked out and feeling embarrassed for ever panicking over such a minor threat. Enzo is already barking orders to move out, but his teammate is clearly just as eager to jump into the fray. Yaisuk is left standing in the shadows, his face twisted in deep, existential dread as he questions if this is really his life now. He compares this chaotic, high-speed disaster to the classic fantasy adventures he once dreamed about, feeling like he is stuck in a total speedrun. A desperate, blood-curdling plea for help echoes through the air, snapping Yaisuk out of his internal spiral as he realizes people are actually dying. He tries to act like he was already on the move, but his hesitation is obvious to everyone watching this absolute train wreck. Shock registers on his face as he stares at the carnage, his brain struggling to process the sudden violent shift in their surroundings. The village is literally burning to the ground, with innocent people being manhandled and dragged away by some ruthless, unhinged thugs. These bald-headed goons are parading their captives through the streets, looking like they own the place and enjoying every second of the terror. The leader of the Bald Eagle Bandits is straight-up gloating, screaming that the village is his property while looking like a total, unhinged maniac. Enzo doesn't even hesitate, leveling his high-tech weapon with a cold, lethal glare as he tells these pathetic vultures to get lost. Enzo doesn't even hesitate, leveling his high-tech weapon with a cold, lethal glare as he tells these pathetic vultures to get lost. A blinding beam of pure energy erupts from his cannon, instantly vaporizing the bandit leader's chest in a display of overwhelming, technological superiority. The bandit is left with a massive, smoking hole where his torso used to be, his expression frozen in a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. Jach and Yaisak stand back, watching the carnage with a mix of awe and dread, realizing this world is a total death trap. The remaining bandits are panicking, screaming in terror as they realize their prey is actually a squad of absolute, overpowered monsters. Enzo's armor flickers with digital glitches as he maintains his cold, calculated focus, proving he is the most dangerous person on this battlefield. A relentless barrage of energy beams tears through the ranks of the bandits, turning the entire village square into a literal smoking graveyard. One of the surviving thugs looks on with wide, terrified eyes, finally realizing that he and his crew are completely out of their leg. Poina leaps into the air with a massive, jagged blade, descending like a vengeful spirit to deliver a brutal, bone-crushing blow to the survivors. Blood sprays across the scene as she connects with a sickening thud, leaving the last of the bandits reeling in pure, agonizing defeat. Poina is absolutely unloading on these thugs, her blade slamming into their defenses with enough raw force to make the ground shake. She is locked in, eyes burning with a cold, focused intensity as she stares down the remaining bandits who dared to cross her. The blonde heroine steps in, flashing a casual, almost mocking smile as she checks on the kid who is clearly out of his depth. That poor kid looks completely shell-shocked, his eyes wide and trembling as he tries to process the absolute carnage unfolding right in front of him. She keeps that same breezy, unbothered energy, dropping the bombshell that they are only playing the hero role for the time being. The situation turns sour fast, with the blonde heroine calling out the group for acting more like bloodthirsty bandits than actual saviors. Yaisak is trying to play the protector, stepping in front of the kid with a protective arm, telling him to stay out of sight. A massive, hulking brute looms over them like a literal mountain, his shadow swallowing the entire area as he prepares for a final stand. The bandit leader is fuming, his face a twisted mess of rage as he demands to know where these interlopers crawled out from. He raises his weapon high, screaming for them to stop interfering with his business and get lost before he turns them into paste. Yaisak is staring daggers, his eyes cold and focused as he finally snaps out of his pathetic, self-doubting mental fog. He stands ready, his body coiled like a spring as a surge of blue energy crackles around him, signaling he is done playing around. Stepping up to protect the innocent, he moves with a newfound, gritty determination that proves he is finally ready to embrace his role. He awkwardly scratches his head, still trying to shake off the lingering, nervous habits from his past life as a corporate drone. Enzo looms over him, his high-tech armor gleaming as he demands to know why Yaisak is acting so incredibly soft and incompetent. The tech hero doesn't hold back, straight up questioning if Yaisak even deserves the title of hero given his total lack of survival instincts. Yaisak looks down, his face flushed with shame as Enzo's brutal, cold-blooded critique hits him right where it hurts the most. That same question echoes in his mind, a haunting reminder that he is still just a weak, terrified office worker in a hero's body. Suddenly, a flashback hits him like a freight train, showing his old, soul-crushing boss berating him for his performance back in the corporate grind. He stands there, completely paralyzed by the realization that despite the magic and the monsters, he is still trapped in the same, endless cycle of failure. Jacha is literally perched in a tree like some kind of feral predator, watching Yaisak with a look that is equal parts amusement and pure, unadulterated judgment. He is clearly fixated on the guy, his eyes glowing with that wild, predatory intensity as he mentally dissects Yaisak's every move and his pathetic, nervous sweat. Jacha calls him out for being a total statue during the fight, mocking the fact that he didn't even flinch or try to dodge that massive, incoming axe. The tension is palpable as Jacha drops down from the tree, landing with a heavy thud that makes Yaisak jump out of his skin in total panic surprise. He leans in close, flashing a grin that is way too sharp for comfort while casually confirming the name of the guy he is currently terrorizing. Jachai drapes a massive, muscular arm over Yaisak's shoulder, making him look like a tiny, fragile doll compared to his own hulking, beast-like frame and terrifying presence. He doesn't waste any time, immediately pivoting to the real issue and demanding to know when Yaisak is finally going to stop hiding his actual hidden power. He points out that the rest of the squad has already done the heavy lifting, leaving Yaisak looking like a total, useless dead weight in the process. Yaisak tries to clap back with a weak, sarcastic retort, but his internal monologue is screaming that he is tired of being the group's punching bag. Jacha just laughs in his face, completely unimpressed by the sass while he watches another hero jump into the action, leaving Yaisak feeling absolutely, completely exposed. A massive blood-slicked hand grips a neck with terrifying bone-crushing force, signaling the end for some poor, unfortunate soul. The action is pure chaos as a blur of motion tears through the battlefield, leaving the opposition completely helpless against such overwhelming, raw physical power. That white-haired maniac is absolutely thriving, his muscles coiled and ready as he lunges forward with a predatory, shark-like grin that screams pure malice. He delivers a brutal, crushing blow to the throat, his fingers digging deep into flesh while the victim is left gasping for air. The guy is clearly enjoying the carnage, his blade flashing as he revels in the mess he just created with his own hands. He wipes the blood from his face with a twisted, satisfied smirk, casually asking what his target was trying to say before he got interrupted. His eyes are burning with a cold, yellow intensity as he stares down the wreckage, clearly bored by how easily he dismantled the opposition. Yaisok stands there looking completely unbothered and detached, claiming he is just saving his energy for when the real, high-stakes action finally kicks off. The villagers are waving goodbye with naive, hopeful smiles, completely oblivious to the fact that they are being protected by a group of absolute, unhinged psychos. The party hits the road again, sprinting through the forest as they leave the village behind to continue their dangerous, high-speed quest toward the Demon Lord. Yaisok is totally over Diable's fake act, snapping at her to stop yapping while he tries to focus on their mission. He demands she cough up some actual intel on the first demon they are hunting, clearly losing his patience with her games. Diable stares back with a cold, unreadable expression, keeping her true demonic nature hidden while she weighs her next manipulative move. We flash back to a younger, naive Diable at 15, vibrating with pure, unhinged excitement as she arrives at the Demon Lord's castle. She is greeted by a stoic, silver-haired demon who looks completely unimpressed by her desperate, high-energy introduction to the staff. This veteran demon recognizes her as someone the Demon Lord previously mentioned, eyeing her with a mix of suspicion and cold indifference. The young, eager Diable clasps her hands together, begging for any scrap of information on what the Demon Lord actually enjoys. The older demon pauses, then drops a single, dry piece of advice, telling her that the master prefers things neat and tidy. She takes that advice to heart, immediately going into a cleaning frenzy, scrubbing every inch of the castle like a total maniac. Finally, she strikes a triumphant pose in the sparkling, spotless hall, screaming for the Demon Lord to notice her hard, manual labor. The Demon Lord stares down at the young, naive Diable with pure, unadulterated disdain, calling her pathetic cleaning efforts a total waste of time. He tells her straight up that she should have spent that precious time training her combat skills instead of playing the role of a maid. Back in the present, Diable is absolutely seething, her face contorted in a silent, furious rage as she remembers the sting of his cold rejection. She is literally losing her mind, screaming internally that she was played like a fiddle by the very master she is so desperate to impress. She mutters to herself that the Demon Lord is acting like a wicked sister-in-law, but quickly covers her tracks when someone asks what she said. Enzo steps into the frame, his armor gleaming as he declares they have finally arrived at the location of the first demon. Yaisok is visibly shaking, his eyes wide as he realizes they are standing right on the doorstep of their ultimate, life-threatening nightmare. The massive, ominous structure looms over them, radiating a dark, oppressive energy that makes it clear they are walking into a total death trap. Enzo suggests they proceed with extreme caution, but his cold, professional tone does absolutely nothing to calm the rising panic in the group. Poina cuts him off with a sinister, sharp grin, declaring that there is no need for such cowardice because she is ready to burn it all down. Poina is absolutely losing it, screaming that they should just stop the talk and break through the front door like total savages. She slams her foot down onto the glowing magic circle, channeling her raw, chaotic energy into the ground to force an opening. The floor erupts in a blinding flash of light and debris, effectively blowing the entrance wide open with zero regard for stealth. Standing amidst the smoke, Eretion appears, looking completely unimpressed as she asks who these loud, obnoxious intruders actually think they are. She stares them down with those piercing, cold eyes, her expression unreadable as she waits for them to justify their pathetic existence. The heroes stand their ground, but the tension is thick enough to choke on as they realize they are facing a real demon. Enzo keeps his cool, reminding everyone that he told them to proceed with caution, but clearly, nobody listens to the tech guy. Eretion shifts her gaze, her curiosity piqued as she asks if these are the so-called heroes that everyone has been whispering about. Diable is sweating bullets in the back, staring at Eretion and desperately trying to remember where she has seen that face before. Panic sets in as Diable realizes this is a blast from her past, wondering if the demon is playing dumb or actually recognizes her. Eretion struts forward, her boots clicking against the floor as she dismisses the idea that she has ever crossed paths with these nobodies. She flexes those red horns and glowing eyes, dropping the cold, hard truth that nobody who has ever seen her power has survived to tell the tale. Poina isn't waiting for an invitation, screaming that she is going first as she launches herself into the air with her blade drawn and ready. Eretion doesn't even flinch, casually conjuring a glowing golden magic circle in the air to manifest a literal missile out of thin air. Poina is midair, her eyes wide with pure confusion as she realizes she is staring down a high-tech explosive in a fantasy world. The impact is instant and brutal, with Ereshin's telekinetic missile slamming into Poina's guard and sending a shockwave of fire through the entire hall. Diable watches the chaos unfold, her face pale as she whispers the name of this demon, finally recognizing the nightmare she is dealing with. Ereshin explains her terrifying ability to summon and control explosives, mocking the heroes for their ignorance of her lethal, reality-bending combat style. She recounts how 2 years ago, the promise of godlike power turned the world into a meat grinder, with everyone clawing for the demon lord's key. Lounging back with total, infuriating arrogance, Ereshin calls out for the next victim, asking how they expect to kill the demon lord if they can't even handle her. The party is sweating bullets as Ereshin drops a cold ultimatum, basically telling them she is coming to finish them off herself. She reflects on the absolute graveyard of humans who dared to challenge her in the past, wondering if this group will actually survive. Jach isn't backing down, stepping up with that feral grin to announce he is joining the fight against this high-ranking demon gatekeeper. Ereshin looks genuinely surprised, her eyes narrowing as she realizes another hero is stepping into the ring to test their luck against her. The action explodes as Jach lunges forward with a blade, moving with such insane speed that he is basically a blur of muscle. She stares him down with total arrogance, claiming that charging straight at her is a completely pointless move that will lead to his death. Jach just smirks back at her, his expression dripping with pure, unadulterated confidence as he challenges her dismissive, high-and-mighty attitude. Suddenly, he vanishes from her line of sight, leaving Ereshin completely baffled as she wonders where the hell he just went. He reappears right behind her, closing the distance in a heartbeat and pressing his blade against her back before she can even react. Ereshin's eyes widen in genuine shock, realizing she is caught off guard and it is officially too late for her to dodge his lethal strike. Jach has Ereshin completely pinned, his massive frame looming over her as he drives his blade into the block. She is absolutely fuming, her eyes burning with rage as she snaps that the demon is her personal prey. The demon gatekeeper doesn't look rattled, just annoyed that her little game of cat and mouse has been so rudely interrupted. Jach is clearly feeling the strain, his muscles tensing as he realizes he might have overextended his own raw, physical strength. He wears a twisted, cocky smirk, clearly enjoying the chaos even as he realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. The battlefield is a total disaster, with the heroes clashing in midair while their lack of coordination turns the fight into a joke. Enzo watches the absolute dumpster fire with a cold, dead stare, his patience for these amateur antics officially hitting zero. The blonde heroine looks on, her face pale and wide-eyed as she realizes her teammates are acting like complete, unhinged lunatics. Enzo finally snaps, his armor glowing with a terrifying high-tech surge as he demands to know what the hell they are doing. Ereshin seizes the moment of distraction, unleashing a massive, blinding wave of energy that forces the entire party to scramble for their lives. Poina is absolutely locked in, her eyes burning with a fierce, desperate intensity as she prepares to strike at the demon. Enzo is clearly losing his mind, barking at her to get out of his way because she is ruining his perfect shot. She snaps back with pure venom, calling him an old man and accusing him of being the one who is actually interfering. Jach just watches the pathetic bickering with a smug, shark-like grin, clearly finding the whole disaster to be absolutely hilarious. The tension hits a breaking point as someone finally loses their cool, muttering under their breath about how little they can take. They are all spiraling, screaming about being stuck in the middle of this mess, while the real threat is right in front of them. Diable stands in the shadows, looking totally unbothered and thinking that she really can't blame the demon for getting pissed at these idiots. Ereshin is moving with lethal grace, her body coiled and ready to unleash a world of hurt on the bickering heroes. She stares them down with a cold, predatory gaze, challenging the entire group to attack her all at once so she can finish them. With a flick of her wrist, she conjures a massive, glowing magic circle, ready to wipe the floor with these pathetic amateur heroes. Ereshin isn't playing around, launching a literal high-tech missile straight at the heroes. The explosion is massive, forcing Poina to desperately shield herself from the blinding, fiery blast. She gets sent flying through the air, barely keeping her grip on that oversized blade. Ereshin closes the distance, her movements fluid and lethal as she prepares to finish the job. She swings her weapon with terrifying precision, forcing the heroes to scramble just to stay alive. Poina, clearly loving the adrenaline, grins through the chaos and admits this is actually getting interesting. She dodges another incoming missile by a hair, her reflexes pushed to the absolute limit. Blocking the next strike with her blade, she holds her ground against the demon's relentless assault. Ereshin counters with a brutal kick, sending a shockwave through the hall as she dominates the fight. Watching from the sidelines, the demon gatekeeper looks bored, wondering if they have anything else to offer. Poina is locked in, her reflection staring back with that signature, unhinged smirk as she prepares to throw down again. Enzo is absolutely losing his patience, shouting that charging in without a plan is a one-way ticket to the grave. She completely ignores his lecture, screaming that she does not care and is diving right back into the heat of battle. Ireshin stands ready, her eyes glowing with a cold, predatory light as she grips her weapon, waiting for the next move. The two fighters lock eyes, a silent, electric tension crackling between them as they prepare to clash in a blur of motion. They collide with devastating force, a whirlwind of steel and raw aggression tearing through the air as they trade lethal blows. Pointer is caught off guard, her eyes widening in genuine shock as she realizes she has been completely outmaneuvered by the demon. Ireshin watches her opponent stumble, looking genuinely confused and asking if the hero has actually decided to turn tail and run away. The demon gatekeeper stands tall, her expression unbothered and arrogant, clearly unimpressed by the chaotic, messy display of the hero party. She starts to taunt them, her hands moving with a fluid, menacing grace as she prepares to end this pathetic little skirmish. The squad is literally falling apart at the seams, with Poina snapping back at them to ditch the strategy talk. She is clearly fed up with the hesitation, declaring that she doesn't need a plan to get the job done. Her eyes are burning with a reckless, suicidal intensity as she vows to keep charging until she finally takes the demon down. Jacha just watches the absolute train wreck with a mocking smirk, basically calling her a lost cause who has already given up on living. Yaisok tries to play the voice of reason, begging them to at least talk it over, but he is clearly just terrified. Ireshin isn't having any of their nonsense, calling them out as little rats for trying to hide behind the rubble. She summons a massive, high-tech explosive projectile that descends from the ceiling like a death sentence aimed right at Poina's head. The impact is instantaneous and horrific, with the blast tearing through the air and obliterating everything in its immediate fiery path. Poina is left completely defenseless as the explosion shreds her, leaving her standing there in a spray of blood and pure, agonizing shock. Diable watches the gruesome scene with a hidden, twisted smile, confirming that the hero party has officially suffered its very first fatal casualty. Enzo and Valerie are absolutely reeling, their faces pale and eyes wide with pure, unadulterated shock as they stare at the carnage, realizing that Song Yaisok is the only one left who can possibly turn this absolute disaster around. Yaisok is completely spiraling, his hair disheveled and face drenched in a cold, terrified sweat as he stammers out a pathetic excuse, admitting he genuinely thought she would dodge that lethal, point-blank explosive attack.